Michelle quickly got up from the bed and went to the bags on the table. She briefly looked around the room and saw an enlarged picture of Jaemin when he was a young boy. There was a woman with him in the picture, and from the resemblance, Michelle instantly knew that she was his mother. She realized that this was Jaemin's bedroom in the house and began to wonder if he had cameras monitoring her movement. She told herself that it did not matter, since she would be gone before he realized it. She began to check the bags and was surprised to see that Jaemin had left his phone on the table. She looked at the door and wondered if she should lock it. She decided not to, as it would only make her seem suspicious. As she checked the bag of clothes that the sales girl had given to her at the mall, she took out the contents one after the other and noticed a black shorts with something in its pocket. She quickly took it out and saw a small white nylon with a white powdery substance in it. There was a note in the pocket, and when she opened it, it read, "Tomorrow is a special occasion for Jaemin because it marks 8 years since he became the boss of the Black Viper organization. He is bound to celebrate it in his own way, and I have been reliably informed that he keeps his celebration substance in his cupboard. Search for it and mix this substance into it. When he uses it tomorrow, he will pass out for a few hours. During this time, his underlings will rush him to hospital and you will be left alone. Get ready. I have someone there who will extract you at 8 and bring you to me. After that, I will hand you over to Richard. If you understand the plan, send a message across to me and try not to get caught, because if you do, the Viper will not spare you." Michelle became even more afraid after reading the note. Why did he have to send her to do something so dangerous? How was she supposed to find Jaemin's stash when she had only just arrived in this house? But how did Red Blaze know that they would not go back to the beach house? Did he orchestrate the attack on them? She decided to use the opportunity she had wisely. She quickly placed the small nylon under the bed where she was sure that Jaemin would not find it. She took his phone, went into the bathroom, and locked herself in, after chewing the piece of paper and flushing it down the toilet. She unlocked Jaemin's phone and sent a text to Red Blaze, telling him that she understood the plan and was fully on board with it. After sending him a text, she quickly sent a voice message to Richard. In the audio she said, "Hi Richard, I know that you are doing everything in your power to rescue me and I am grateful for it. I knew without a doubt that I could rely on you and you proved me right. Jaemin took me to Jeju Island and has been keeping me captive here. We were initially at his beach house, but after an attempt was made on our lives, he took me to a mansion that is heavily guarded by his organization members. A man called Red Blaze has reached out to me. He said you are both working together to secure my release from Jaemin. I really don't know who to trust, but I can't stay here anymore. I'm going to do my part and come tomorrow by 8. Red Blaze will retrieve me from here. Thanks for everything. I look forward to seeing you. Please do not reply to this message because I will be in serious danger if the Viper finds out. All the best." Jaemin went into the room where the 6 attackers who had shot at them were being held. They had bruises all over their faces as Jaemin's underlings had thoroughly dealt with them. The moment they saw Jaemin, they frantically began to beg for their lives, claiming that they were mere underlings who were following orders. Jaemin did not need to question them since the tattoo on their necks showed that they were sent by the leader of the Wild Dragon organization. He watched them beg for their lives for a few minutes and smiled as he said, "I have lately become merciful and forgiving, and I would have surely forgiven all of you since you are merely servants. However, you didn't just shoot at me. You shot at my princess and ruined her day, which was going beautifully well. That is a crime punishable by death." After speaking, Jaemin dealt with all 6 of them one after the other without a flicker of emotion. He asked his underlings to get rid of the evidence and turned to leave. When he got to the door, he further instructed them, "Send a warning to the wild dragons. I am letting them off the hook just this once because I am busy. However, if there is a repeat of what happened today, then there is going to be a war." He finally left the room and hurried back to his bedroom. He knew Michelle was not in her best state and did not want to leave her alone for too long. After making sure the message had been sent successfully, Michelle got rid of all the evidence and went back to the bedroom. She placed the phone on the table and decided to check the cupboard since Jaemin was not yet back. However, she heard footsteps approaching and instantly stopped. She quickly got back on the bed and curled her body as if she had not gotten up since she lay there. Jaemin got on the bed and lay beside her the moment he entered the room. He turned her body so she could face him and lifted her head so their eyes could meet. "I'm sorry that you are having a hard time, princess. I'm going to teach you how to be strong and how to defend yourself. I almost lost you today and it really scared me. I love you so much." Michelle stared at Jaemin without a word, from the moment she met him. He kept telling her he loved her, and she was slowly beginning to believe him. Perhaps forcefully keeping her by his side was the only way he knew how to love. Considering the environment he grew up in, It was unfortunate for him that she cared deeply for someone else, and was going to leave his side in less than 48 hours. Jaemin wished he could tell what was going on in Michelle's mind as she just kept staring at him. He lightly caressed her lips with his thumb before sealing it with a kiss. Richard got up from where he sat and went to sit closer to Jaemin. They stared at each other briefly before he said, "As I said before, Michelle has been abducted, and it happened the night she went to Club Mirage. The man who abducted Michelle is a mafia boss. His name is Jaemin, but he is mostly known as the Black Viper. He is very dangerous and ruthless. When he had first taken Michelle, she had found a way to get a phone and contact me. She told me that she had been kidnapped by Jaemin and was trying to escape from his estate. Before I could ask her a few questions, the line went dead and I figured that she had been caught. I got a search warrant and went to his estate, but he had already moved her. I searched thoroughly without success. However, I saw her clothes in his trash, which confirms she was there. The worst is that I cannot say with confidence that Michelle is still safe, because the Viper has no regard for human life. Since she once tried to escape from him, he may have harmed her. I could also be wrong, because my source told me that he is now on Jeju Island and recently eliminated someone because he disrespected his companion. The Viper is not known to have companions, so I chose to assume that the girl in question is Michelle." Jaemin struck his fist on the wall angrily. "This is all Zara's fault. I will not spare her. Locking her up is not enough. She needs a more severe consequence. I want to go to Jeju Island and take the Viper down," Richard continued. "However, I cannot do that officially because it is way outside my jurisdiction. I have taken leave from my office in order to go after him and search for Michelle. But there is a problem. I need someone to fund the mission since what I earn is not enough to cover it. This is where you come in. With your support, there is a high possibility that I will be successful. The Viper is extremely wealthy, and if I am to bring him down, I need significant financial support. Consider it done," Jaemin immediately said. "My family resources are considerable. As a matter of fact, I am joining you on this mission to Jeju Island. Michelle is the woman I love, and I should also be out there searching for her. We can use my private jet to avoid being discovered by the Viper's people. Taking you along with me to Jeju Island is quite risky," Richard replied. "I can take care of myself if push comes to shove, but I cannot say the same for you. If you do come with me, you have to do as I say and stay in the shadows. If anything were to happen to you, Michelle would never forgive me for the rest of her life." Jaemin suddenly had a sad expression on his face. "I never fully realized just how precious Michelle is. Until now, I may have in one way or another taken her for granted." Richard shook his head. "As painful as it is for me to admit, Michelle cares about you deeply. I tried many times to reconnect with her, but each time she kept telling me about how she felt about you." Richard suddenly received a voice message and was surprised. He played it and instantly stood up when he heard Michelle's voice. Jaemin was also surprised, and they both listened carefully as Michelle said, "Hi Richard, I know that you are doing everything in your power to rescue me, and I am grateful for it. I knew without a doubt that I could rely on you, and you proved me right. Jaemin took me to Jeju Island and has been keeping me captive here. We were initially at his beach house, but after an attempt was made on our lives, he took me to a mansion that is heavily guarded by his organization members. A man called Red Blaze has reached out to me. He said you are both working together to secure my release from Jaemin. I really don't know who to trust, but I can't stay here anymore. I'm going to do my part and come tomorrow by 8. Red Blaze will retrieve me from here. Thanks for everything. I look forward to seeing you. Please do not reply to this message because I will be in serious danger if the Viper finds out. All the best." Both Richard and Jaemin felt profound relief wash over them as they now knew for a fact that Michelle was still alive. Richard paced up and down as he thought about what Michelle had said. She was going to escape from the Viper tomorrow night with the help of someone called Red Blaze, whoever this Red Blaze was. He had Michelle believing he was working together with Richard, whereas he had never heard of the man. He must be a rival of the Viper and wanted to get to him through Michelle. Richard began to fear for Michelle's safety, especially since there was no way for him to get through to her. There was only one solution left. He needed to be there when Red Blaze extracted Michelle from the Viper. That way he was going to rescue her from Red Blaze and take her far away from all those dangerous people. The only problem was, he had no idea who this Red Blaze was. He decided to pay Danny another visit. If Red Blaze was an enemy of the Viper like he suspected, Danny would surely know about it. He stared at Jaemin and said, "I'm going to find out more information about this Red Blaze so we can get to him before he has a chance to use Michelle as a pawn. Get your private jet ready. We will fly out to Jeju Island before first light." Meanwhile, back in the safe house bedroom on Jeju Island, Michelle lay beside Jaemin as the night deepened around them. She stared at the ceiling quietly, thinking about tomorrow at 8, about Richard flying toward her, about Red Blaze's plan, about the substance hidden under the bed, and about the man lying beside her who kept saying he loved her. She found herself wondering, in one quiet, honest corner of her mind, whether leaving him was going to be as simple as she had always told herself it would be. The thought disturbed her more than she was willing to admit. She reminded herself sharply of who she was, where she came from, and who was waiting to bring her home. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow at 8, it would all be over. Richard sat down and stared at Danny with a serious expression on his face. Danny sighed. After how urgent you sounded the last time we met, I thought you would have left for Jeju Island by now. There's a man called Red Blaze, Richard replied. He has Michelle believing that he is working with me and they are attempting to escape tomorrow night from the Viper. I am afraid that this man is an enemy of the Viper and is merely trying to use Michelle to get to him. I have no way of reaching her, which means that I have to be 2 steps ahead of Red Blaze if he succeeds in extracting Michelle. I need to be there to rescue her from him. I don't know who this Red Blaze is, but since you are working undercover, I'm sure you can easily find out about him for me. Just ask your contacts. I need to know where to find him. There's no need for me to ask anyone, Danny replied. Red Blaze is well known and his lair isn't necessarily a secret. The only problem is, you won't make it in there if you are not connected to that world. To the best of my knowledge, he has no enmity with the mafia organization since he doesn't take sides. He is a contractor and for the right amount, does dirty jobs for various groups. If he is trying to get Michelle from the Viper, then I bet that he has been contracted by another organization. I can't say for sure, but I suspect the Wild Dragons. The leader has a grudge against the Viper and might want to use Michelle to get to him. He is quite ruthless, and if Michelle falls into his hands, he is known for being thorough and merciless. Richard stared at Danny in shock as he thought, my beloved Michelle, what have you gotten yourself into? He so badly wished he could send a message across to Michelle. It was better for her to stay by the Viper's side and be alive than surrender herself to a greater danger. He got up and began to pace up and down. There has to be something I can do, Danny. I cannot watch Michelle fall into the hands of the Wild Dragons. What do I do? Danny shook his head. I wish I could give you a solution. These are all dangerous people, Richard. Trying to take them down on your own would be suicide. Richard's eyes suddenly lit up. I think you just gave me the answer I need. Danny shook his head, wondering what Richard meant, while the latter said, I need the address of Red Blaze's lair and every other piece of information you can find out about him. Please send it to me as soon as possible. Danny watched as Richard hurried out and shook his head again. Love could really make someone reckless. He took out his phone and typed in a number before dialing it. He placed the phone on his ear and waited for it to ring. When the call was answered, he said, The Viper, I have news for you. Richard called Quaim and asked for them to meet again. When they did, he told Quaim about everything he had learned. Quaim closed his eyes. Oh no, what is going to happen? I thought of a plan, Richard replied. Your family is highly connected, so, with a few phone calls and a large amount of money, we can get the protection of 200 police officers and a search warrant for Red Blaze's lair. I have received the address from my source, so all we have to do is make sure the officers are stationed in different locations, not far from Blaze's lair. To be on the safe side, the officers will not be told that we are going after Blaze until the last minute, because we don't know which of them are on his payroll. I will disguise myself and keep watch while you stay back with the officers. Since they are extracting Michelle at 8, I will start monitoring Red Blaze's movement at 6. I will follow him stealthily and watch as he rescues her from the Viper. That is, if he will be successful. Going by what my source told me, I think he would be. Once he takes her into his lair, I will give you the signal and you will direct all 200 officers to me. No matter how powerful Blaze might be, he knows that confronting 200 officers will not go unnoticed. The government will hunt him down if that happens, so he will be forced to let us do our jobs. We will search the house thoroughly, rescue Michelle and quickly take her to your private jet. We will fly her out from Jeju Island because the Viper will surely try to get her back, even if it's for the sake of his pride. You will have to take her to a different country where she will be in hiding for a while. If possible, she can take on a new identity. I would have suggested she alter her appearance significantly, but I don't want to change her beautiful face. I also know that Michelle would never agree to anything drastic, so she will have to wear a customized disguise each time she goes out, and also change the color of her hair. After a while, you can bring her back. The Viper will not recognize her when he sees her, and everyone will assume that you found someone else and moved on with your life. Quaim shook Richard's hand. Wow, Richard, that is such a brilliant plan. Thank you so much for all you are doing for Michelle. I know she means a lot to you. That's why you are doing this. But I still feel the need to thank you. I will get started on those phone calls right away and tell you how it goes. You look like you haven't slept in days. Try and do so before we leave tomorrow. Michelle held Jaemin close as she pretended to sleep. He found her recent actions really sweet and wondered if she had finally accepted this as her life. Later in the night, when Jaemin began to breathe deeply in sleep, Michelle freed her body from his hold and got up from the bed. She had not been able to get any sleep due to how afraid she was. She had to pretend because she did not want Jaemin to be suspicious. She carefully opened the cupboard and began to check for Jaemin's substance. While looking over her shoulders every few seconds to ensure that he wasn't awake, she spent the next 30 minutes searching in vain. When she could not find it, she sat on the ground and began to cry. All her hopes had been dashed into pieces. She had thought that she would be reunited with Quaim in no time, but now she felt that it was never going to happen. She realized that she had to inform Red Blaze that it would not be possible since she could not find what she was looking for. She got up from the ground, wiped her tears, and began to search for his phone, but it did not seem to be in the room. She became tired and was about to give up and go to bed when she noticed a carton on the table that had books stacked on it. She didn't know what was inside, but she decided to check. Perhaps Jaemin had hidden his phone there. She carefully took down the books and opened the carton. She was surprised to see a transparent bag with a white substance inside it. It was similar to the one Red Blaze had given to her, only that it was larger. She observed Jaemin for a few seconds before bending to take out the substance she had hidden under the bed. She decided to check both to be sure that she wasn't going to harm him in any way. Even though she wanted to leave him, she did not want him to be seriously harmed. Especially by her hands, for all she knew. Red Blaze may have given her something dangerous because she knew for a fact that he was the Viper's enemy. She confirmed the two substances matched and finally mixed them carefully into Jaemin's stash and placed it back in the box. She returned everything to the way it was and kept the empty nylon under the bed because she did not want it to be discovered until she was gone. Jaemin had told her that the cleaners were only allowed to work on the weekends, so that was likely when it would be found. And by then, she would be long gone. She sighed in relief when she had done everything successfully and stared at Jaemin, who was sound asleep. I will surely remember you, Jaemin, but you are not the right one for me. She went into the bathroom and washed her hands before coming back to join him on the bed when she woke up in the morning. Michelle noticed that the shower was running and saw Jaemin bathing as he left the bathroom door open. She joined him and they showered together. Later on, while they were eating their breakfast, Jaemin, who kept staring at Michelle warmly, said, "Today is a special day for me. It marks 8 years since I became the leader of the Black Viper organization. I usually celebrate it with my most trusted underlings. We mark the occasion in different ways, but this year, I don't feel like doing all that because I have you." Michelle's heart began to beat fast. Was Jaemin saying he wasn't going to use his stash today because of her? But how could she let that happen? All her plans would be ruined. No, she couldn't let such a thing happen. She smiled warmly at him. "Congratulations, Viper. When you say you usually celebrate, what do you mean? What exactly is part of the celebration?" Jaemin caressed her cheek. "Thank you, princess. I usually enjoy strong drink and a special substance. You can't even touch it because it's powerful. Some people have lost themselves entirely from taking it, but I am different. I am tough and can bear anything, but like I said, I want to spend today by your side. I want to hold you, look into your eyes, and appreciate that I got to meet someone as special as you in my life. You cannot do that," Michelle said as she pushed Jaemin's hand away from her face in frustration. Jaemin stared at her in surprise, but then she realized her actions and took hold of his hand. She held him by his wrist and kissed his palm. "I want to see the Viper everyone talks about. I want you to be wild with me while you're celebrating, because I love it when you let loose." Michelle could see the gleam in Jaemin's eyes, and she was surprised that she was able to say such words to him so convincingly. Jaemin set down what he was holding and got up to where she sat. He cupped her face and kissed her deeply. When he pulled away, he whispered, "You are so sweet, princess. How can I say no to that?" Michelle realized the implication of Jaemin's words and smiled in relief. She also set down what she was holding and circled her arms around his neck. Jaemin went on his knees and looked into her eyes as she sat on the chair and caressed his face. She caressed his lips with her thumb and placed a soft kiss on them as she breathed. You have a special place in my heart, my viper. Two of Jaemin's underlings who stood guard at their duty posts by the door stared at the apparent love between them before glancing at each other and shaking their heads, as it seemed that their boss had completely lost himself to this woman after spending some time in the dining area. Michelle and Jaemin went back into the bedroom. He took out a bottle of wine from his fridge and opened it. He took out 2 glasses and filled them to the brim. Michelle did not want to drink because she was worried she might lose focus and ruin her plans. However, Jaemin was staring at her with so much warmth in his eyes, and she knew that it was an important day for him. After hesitating briefly, she decided to share in his moment and accepted the cup of wine from him. After drinking for a few minutes, he went to the carton and took out his stash. He poured some of it onto a piece of paper and went back to the couch where he was sitting before. He placed the paper on the table in front of him and began the ritual using his index finger. Michelle sat on the bed watching him. Her heart was racing as she knew that her moment of escape was near. She still drank from the cup in her hands and did everything she could to not look suspicious. Jaemin was staring at her intently, and she could feel his gaze burning into her skin. She did not know why he was looking at her, and she did not have the courage to ask. He picked up his wine glass and drank some more without taking his eyes away from her. Even when he prepared more of the substance, his eyes did not leave her. Michelle couldn't take it anymore and turned her face away from him. Could it be that he knew about her plans? Why was he staring at her so much without saying a word? She suddenly became filled with a new feeling of dread as she thought of the possibility that Jaemin knew about everything she was doing. However, when she looked at him again, she saw that he had dropped the glass and was holding his head weakly. She feigned surprise and quickly ran to his side. "Are you okay?" "I don't really know," Jaemin replied. "I just feel very dizzy." Michelle held Jaemin and slowly led him to the bed. Once he lay on the bed, he closed his eyes and slept off. She carefully checked him, and when she confirmed that he was asleep, breathed a sigh of relief as she knew that it was her cue to swing into action. She was aware that Jaemin would eventually point her out as the one responsible for what happened to his stash, but she would be long gone by that time. She went back to the transparent nylon she hid under the bed and decided to take it along with her to be on the safe side. She went into the bathroom and washed it with soap and water so no one would be able to tell what had been kept inside. After that, she hid it inside the pocket of her jean trousers. Now that she was convinced that there were no loose ends on her part, she went back to the bed, shook Jaemin's body, and tried to get him to wake up, but he did not. She quickly ran out of the room and called for help. The 2 underlings who had been keeping guard at the door quickly ran to her and asked what the problem was. She pointed at the room with tears in her eyes and told them that Jaemin said he wanted to sleep and climbed onto the bed, but now he was refusing to wake up. The 2 underlings went inside and checked on Jaemin. They quickly called the attention of the others. Jaemin's most trusted underling, who was called Milan, stared at Michelle suspiciously for a few seconds and asked, "What did he take?" More of Jaemin's underlings came into the room, and soon it was crawling with organization members. Michelle began to explain that he said he wanted to celebrate with her, so he used his substance, and they drank his wine together, but he suddenly became sleepy and went to the bed. But when she tried to adjust his body so he could sleep properly, she realized that he was unconscious. The men were all staring at Michelle, and as she observed them, she tried to figure out which one of them was working for Red Blaze, since he had said one of his men would extract her. However, she could not tell which of them was a spy because they were mostly busy trying to get Jaemin to wake up. "He needs to see a doctor," Milan said, and Michelle heaved a sigh of relief that things were going as planned. She waited for them all to leave, but while some left, his trusted underlings stayed behind. She became confused and asked Milan, "Didn't you say that he needs to see a doctor? Why are you not taking him to the hospital?" He stared at her as if he was trying to figure out if her concern for Jaemin was genuine. Michelle's heart was beating really fast, and at this point, she felt grateful that she had taken the nylon from under the bed. After a while, Milan said, "The doctor will soon be here. We have a medical supply room, so there's no need to move him. Everything he needs is right here." Michelle tried to conceal the shock on her face. She felt like crying. All her efforts had gone down the drain. Red Blaze had said that they would leave for the hospital without her, and like a fool she had quickly believed him and risked her life. Now she didn't know what would happen to her. Jaemin was definitely going to catch her when he woke up because he was very perceptive. Once the doctor confirmed that his stash had been tampered with, Jaemin would know she was responsible. Would he harm her this time around? But she didn't want to die. She still wanted to live for many more years. She could not control her emotions anymore and suddenly began to cry as her body started to shiver. She wished someone could come and rescue her, but now she was trapped. There was no way out for her. One of the two underlings who were earlier guarding the door thought that Michelle was crying because of Jaemin's condition and tried to comfort her by saying, "Don't worry. He is going to be fine in no time." Ignoring his words, Michelle closed her eyes and placed her hands in between her lap as she sat on the couch in the bedroom, shivering and desperately hoping for a miracle.